Hello and welcome to Paydirt TV. I'm Dominic Piper. Today I'm joined by Jeff McNamara, Executive Chairman of Rincon Resources. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Morning, Dom. Thank you very much for having me on.
Jeff, it's always a rush to get onto the bourse before the end of the year, but Rincon Resources has achieved that this week, listing after a $6 million IPO. You must be delighted to list. And was the IPO process successful?
Yeah, thanks, Dom. Yes, it was. We were heavily oversubscribed in the capital raising. And as you're probably aware, a lot of companies coming to the ASX in the last couple of weeks of December. So it was good to be able to list prior to year end. And it's been well received by the market.
How did the company and this portfolio of projects come together?
Myself and Zephron Reeves put the company together, and through our network, we were able to acquire the assets. So there are 3 assets in the portfolio: South Telfer, Laverton, and Kirakura. Zeph knew a prospector who held South Telfer, and we bought those 3 tenements off him. Laverton was a contact who's also a major shareholder. And Zeph actually worked on the Kirakura Project in his younger days. He actually executed the maiden drill program there.
The South Telfer Project, I assume, is the flagship because it's in probably the hottest exploration province in Australia at the moment, the Patterson province. You mentioned that they picked up the ground, although the ground was previously held by a prospector. Does that mean there's been very little commercial scale grade work on the project?
Fortuitously for us, Newcrest drilled the property in the late 90s, early 2000s. So it's actually just under 25,000 metres of RAD, air core diamond drilling on the project. They also took over 1,000 soil samples. And we've, since acquisition, we've also acquired some geophysics that was flown there by Newcrest as well. So there is a very good existing database that we've been working through over the last year and a half and reinterpreting that. We have done some 3D modelling on that data to get a better understanding of the plunge and the orientation of the mineralisation. So it was fortuitous that Newcrest had done that good quality work, and we were able to inherit that from.
So does that mean you're almost ready then to hit the ground running in 2021 and start drilling? Have you got drill-ready targets at South Telfer?
Yes, we do. So the final process before getting on the ground is to have heritage clearance. So we have our native title agreements, and we're just working to finalise heritage clearance now. Due to the temperature up in that region, as you're probably aware, we wouldn't be on the ground till probably March. But we'll complete the heritage clearance. We'll do some soils, some geophysics, and then look to launch Rincon's maiden drill program there on the Hastings prospect. The Hastings is the one that's closest to Telfer. It's just under 12 kilometres southwest of the Telfer mine.
And so what's the opportunity at Hastings and the wider South Telfer project? Is it for a quick run into a maiden resource, or is it something a little bit more longer term?
You've hit the nail on the head there, Dom. We're targeting a maiden resource within 24 months. We think, based on the existing drilling, the fact that the mineralisation is outcropping on all 3 of the tenements, now that we have a reasonably good understanding of the orientation and the structures controlling it, that we'd like to have a maiden resource, ideally by the end of 2021, if not then early 2022, on Hastings. Our largest tenement there, the Western Dolphy tenements, that'll take some more work. It's a very large tenement. And as you go to the southeast there, the mineralisation does go undercover up to about 80 metres. So we will need to do some more geophysical work there and do some more detailed structural interpretation. But at the start of the property on the northwestern end, there is a very large 5 kilometres gold in soil anomaly. So that's where we'll initial target drilling for that, ideally in March of 2021.
If in the Patterson itself, Telfer, you're near one of the one huge gold mine up there, in your Laverton project, you're obviously on the same trend as several large gold mines, including Wallaby, Granny Smith and so forth. What is the plan at Laverton? What have you got hold of there?
Yeah, so Laverton's also a very strategic tenement package. We've got 2 tenements there. We're 4 kilometres south of the town of Laverton. As you mentioned, there's Wallaby to the south. There's actually a banded iron formation that runs the length of those 2 tenements. And the opportunity for us is a fair portion of that banded iron formation is actually under a slight bit of cover, a few metres. Through the geophysics and some soil sampling that the operations team has completed during the year, we've identified several targets there. One, the G anomaly in the northwestern corner that have never been drilled. So we'll be targeting those. And also there's several very good intercepts near surface that have never been followed up. So it's a combination of new targets and following up on the original targets that have had very broad space drilling across them.
So, Jeff, what are the plans at Laverton in 2021 then? Will you be drilling next year?
Post the maiden drill program at Laverton, we'll go across to Telfer and drill on Hastings. And we expect, based on the historical drilling there and the fact that the mineralisation is outcropping, there's actually a couple of very large gossans outcropping at Hastings, which is the photo on the cover of the Rincon presentation. So it's really be Laverton and Hastings in the first half of 2021, which we'll be focusing our drill programs on. If we're successful at Hastings, then we'll look to accelerate that to a maiden resource by year end.
And your third project is a little bit more greenfields in nature, it looks, at Kirakura. Can you explain a little bit about the rationale behind that project?
Yeah, that's an interesting project. It is very remote, and it's, I suppose, an area that we're now starting to see some of the mid-tiers and majors become active up in that structural trend. As I mentioned earlier, Zeph Reeves, my co-founder, he actually drilled the maiden program there. We'll probably activate work there in the second quarter of 2021, and initially that'll be some geophysics and some more structural interpretation. And we wouldn't look to drill that probably till third quarter of 2021. It is a very remote area, and the other challenge is there that it's not a place you can be during the middle of summer due to its isolated location and the heat.
Jeff, you mentioned your previous success with Zeph Reeves on Kirakura Resources. We've had Zeph in the studio on a number of occasions talking to Paydirt TV about Kirakura and the success you've had there this year. Is that where you saw the support for Rincon from those investors who'd found success with Kirakura, or have you seen them come from elsewhere as well?
Yeah, look, the book we've put together for the IPO is a combination of Kirakura shareholders who've wanted to continue to have exposure and replicate that success. We've also got some institutional investors who've come into Rincon. I think being a Western Australian focused business, there was very high demand for the IPO. We do have a large UK listed vehicle, Gum Singh, who's the major shareholder. Management has around 10%. And then we've got a series of institutional investors, which I'd say makes up probably about 30% of the register, and the remainder is retail. But yes, a lot of the Kirakura shareholders have joined us on this journey as well.
And I'm sure those shareholders will be hoping that Rincon goes on a similar run as Kirakura has this year. Jeff, thanks very much for joining us. We look forward to looking at some of those early drill results from South Telfer and from Laverton. And hopefully, as you say, it's an ambitious target to get a maiden resource out within a year or 18 months, but hopefully you can achieve that. And perhaps you can come back and tell us about the progress mid-2021.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I'd be delighted to come back and tell your audience more about the company once we've executed on our maiden drill program.